Ladies and gentlemen, a great and puzzling paradox appears when looking at the state of the Union today. On the one hand, more people than ever are convinced that major problems such as climate change, migration, automatization, inequality and security require a European approach. But on the other hand, many citizens seem to prefer national or even regional solutions. One explanation is that unfettered globalization offers little protection against threats like deindustrialization, financial speculation and illegal migration, prompting many to seek safety in their own national narratives and their own national identities. But the years of chaos in the UK after the Brexit referendum have opened the eyes of many. Never before has EU membership been supported so broadly. Many of our fellow citizens instinctively know that isolating yourself in today's world is a futile endeavor. Still, the newly formed EU leadership after May 2019 will have to work in a fraught political and social context. They should be aware of the possibilities as well as the constraints they have to live with. The EU institutions will more clearly than before bear the markings of divisions between and within member states. Some governments will try to send populist commissioners to Brussels, which will make decision-making there more difficult. The European Parliament will have to deal with a bigger group of Euro-negative forces, however divided they may be among themselves. The next EU leadership strategic agenda should be determined by people's most urgent concerns, which are migration, climate change, purchasing power and employment. In terms of institutions, this means a further strengthening of the Eurozone and the Schengen area, as well as a deepening and broadening of the single market, the three pillars of the Union. The EU should also develop its own industrial and economic strategy that make use of the scale offered by the single market, together with the pooling of research and development, investment and innovation resources. To achieve greater unity, a consensus must be found on migration. The debate is splitting the Union just as it is splitting the UK and the United States. Social issues must be high on the agenda too. High unemployment, youth unemployment in some European countries, large and growing inequalities and the lack of integration of migrants are undermining the social cohesion and harmony in many member states. It is primarily a competence of the national governments to master these challenges, but Europe can play a crucial role in the fight against international tax fraud and tax evasion. The renewed institutions must also reach an agreement as soon as possible on the European budget for the period 2021-2027. It will be the first major test in the new political interinstitutional cycle. A failure on their part would be a very bad start. In the new global landscape, where nationalism and self-interest are prevailing over multilateralism and solidarity, the EU must remain a defender of open societies. There can be no union without values. The instruments for safeguarding fundamental public values within the Union must be made permanent. Violating them must be sanctioned, institutionally and financially. The EU must also demand that other global partners respect international rules, especially the rule-based trading system. Our role in the world depends on the degree of political unity we can display. Much progress has been made in recent years. The EU has shown a united front on trade, Iran, sanctions on Russia, climate and Brexit. But this is not enough. There is no contradiction between the Union's role as a soft power, with an emphasis on our values and on solidarity with the poor parts of the world, and the EU's role as a world power. But the latter requires a stronger military arm. We can only move from the status of a global actor to that of a world power if we have all the means of international politics at our disposal. We know what to do, that is not a problem. It's a question of finding a consensus and assuming leadership. It's a question of political courage, a scarce commodity in today's world, unfortunately. Our level of ambition must be chosen well. This is not a time for a major European offensive, a tectonic shift, a qualitative integration jump. High expectations can lead to equally great disappointments. There has been enough disillusionment since the poly-crisis erupted in 2010. So yes, we should continue to move forward gradually, but our steps must not be too small. Re-energizing the EU requires us to be realistic without falling into muddling through, and ambitious without striving for a political Europe in the short term. EU's leaders' ambition to display real statesmanship, the ars gouvernandi, will make all the difference.